What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're taking a look at the Sharvol S1 Tactical Flashlight. This is a medium to large size flashlight at 5.75 inches overall, about a little over 1 inch in diameter, and has a max output of 1900 lumens operating off of a 21700 5000 milliamp battery. And you can pick this up on Amazon for right around $72 right now, or on their site directly for $80. Prices on Amazon do tend to fluctuate, so I'll link to both of them in the description. Not affiliated with Sharvol. The Amazon link obviously will help the channel out at no additional cost to you, but use whichever one's cheaper, obviously. And do want to start this off by saying that this was sent to me for review. I did not pay for it. However, I made it clear with Jason, the owner of Sharvol, that I would be providing an honest review, talking about both what I like and what I dislike, and that's definitely what's going to happen. So let's dive right in with the modes. I think that's what a lot of people care about on these flashlight videos. So it does have a memory mode and pretty simple operation. So we have two buttons. We have our function selector and our operation switch. The tail switch acts as our operation on off, and I believe I left it in eco mode. So that's where we're gonna go on. And you can see there's a battery indicator on that function button that goes on when you first select the new mode. And green or red, obviously it's green, so we still have some battery here. And the eco mode is 50 lumens, and it will last for 82 hours. So pretty impressive runtime on that. We obviously have a big old 21700 battery, 5000 milliamps, and so pretty impressive runtime overall. That does add a little bit of heft to this light. It's already a pretty large light, but it weighs in at 6.62 ounces. And I like the eco mode. There's no moonlight mode. I don't think you really need a moonlight mode on a flashlight of this size. I think you're usually wanting a little bit more output when you're reaching for something this large. And this is enough to light up like an interior room in your house. It's a little bit brighter than your cell phone and lights up the room well, runs for a long time. And so if you know you're going to be needing it long term, it's a really good one to operate in. Doesn't throw as far as maybe some of the other modes, obviously. But pretty simple operation from here. All you do is hit this button one time to cycle up to the next mode, and the next mode is going to be low and 150 lumens for 28 hours. Now I really like the progression of this light. It has a nice step up each time you switch modes, and so it feels very consistent. Sometimes you get these weird like jumpy where it's like dull, dull, bright. And so it has a nice production where each time it seems like it's stepping up an appropriate amount. So from here we go into our medium, which is 400 lumens, 18 hours, and very aptly named. This is where it starts to be pretty bright. If you shine this in someone's eyes in a pretty dark environment, it's going to be pretty shocking, a little bit disorienting at that 400 lumens, and starting to step up quite a bit from here. So next up is the high mode. That gets us to 850 lumens. And this may not look that much brighter than the medium mode because the camera seems to adjust the brightness based on how much light is flowing into its sensors, but it is significantly brighter. This is going to run for 13 hours, also starting to throw off some heat, even at a distance of about 6 inches or so away. You can feel that heat in the palm of your hand. Now, last mode in the cycle is 1900 lumens. This is our turbo mode, and this they say will last for 4.5 hours. A little bit misleading though, because I'm actually going to cycle down because that's pretty hot. A little bit misleading because it does step down once it reaches a certain temperature. I believe it was 50 degrees Celsius, and so steps down after about 3 minutes is what it takes to reach that temperature, and it steps down to 700 lumens, and so that's where it lasts the remainder of that 4.5 hours. So did want to point that out. It's not super clear in the manual. It just says turbo mode, 1900 lumens, 4.5 hours, but if you do read the text, it explains that it steps down, and that's to be expected. That's obviously a safety feature. I have no problem with it stepping down, but did want to point that out. Now, while it's on, you can also hold this button to get into some of those other modes, which there's two of. So you have your SOS, which you can get, or your strobe, which you can get to by holding it, and then the SOS, which you can get to by holding it just a little bit longer. I'm not going to do that because we all know what that looks like, and it's just disorienting to me and the viewers, and so just prefer not to show those modes, but they do exist. It's 1900 lumens, same as the turbo mode. And so from there, let's talk about the body itself. We have an aluminum body with this black anodized finish. Not my favorite finish just because of the glossiness of it. I do prefer a more matte look. I think it would look just a little bit better with that matte look, but do like the body of this flashlight. We have that cylindrical body with the squared off head. And so you can see all of the sides of the head are squared off, so you can set this down on a table, flat surface. It's not going to roll away on you, even if on your pocket clip. And so I really like the shape of this. It's also really comfortable to use, especially you get that pocket clip kind of behind your knuckles and put the button on your thumb, and so really just kind of natural operation to hold that in. And the pocket clip does just rotate around. I think it came kind of sequenced to the back where it has this flat space, which makes sense if you're trying to preserve your jeans or belt. But I just liked it at this orientation. It felt really natural, and so that's where I ended up putting it. Now, the pocket clip itself I really like. I love the finish on it. I think it's a really good looking pocket clip, nice retention on it. And it's not a two-way pocket clip, which is fine here. It's a large flashlight. You're not going to put a 6.6 ounce flashlight on your hat, or most likely you're not. And so it doesn't need that two-way pocket clip, but I like the pocket clip that it came with. We do have a silicone door here for that USB-C recharging, and I do find that a little bit hard to get open. That's pretty normal with these doors. I've had that issue with a lot of flashlights, and that's probably a good thing, to be honest, because it keeps them waterproof. And so if that were easy to get open, it's just going to flop open and water is going to get in. But these are IP68 waterproof and impact resistant up to 1.5 meters. We also have a bezeled lip around the tail switch, which protects that button. Sometimes you'll see those get like knocked off or ripped off. I don't foresee that being as much an issue because of these raised bezels, and it does make a nice kind of striking impact point, which we don't have around the bezel of the flashlight. And so that's actually pretty interesting, being that it's a tactical flashlight. Now, a couple things that I would like to see if they ever do make some improvements to this are, one, the positioning of the button. So this is pretty comfortable to operate in this grip, this function button, but I would much prefer it be on the tail switch. And so maybe this is just split, with one half being the on off and one half being the function button. And I do have a flashlight that has that, the Ace Beam Defender P17, and so you can see we have our operation button, our function switch, and they're side by side. They're a little bit different, so you can tell which is which. And this flashlight is $30 to $50 more expensive, and so I think you're still getting a bargain here. It's a trade-off of, you know, if that's worth the price difference. For me, I don't think that that alone is worth the price difference, but the reason I like it is because in order to get over to our function switch is we turn it on, and we have two choices. We can either learn to operate it with like our pinky or slide down a little bit, get our ring finger on there, or we can turn it on, rotate, and then press a button. And it takes about a second. It's not the biggest deal. It's pretty easy to get used to, but it does take a second and doesn't feel as intuitive as something like the P17, where they're side by side and you can just switch which one your thumb is located on. The other thing I think they could borrow from the P17 is the functionality of that switch. So while we're off, this function button doesn't do anything at all. I can double click it, triple click it, hold it, and nothing is happening. In order to access the strobe mode, the SOS mode, you have to have it on. So again, that means we have to turn it on and rotate and then hold that button for a second. And that's a good second and a half to get to your strobe, which if you're needing your strobe, that might be a little bit too long. With the P17, again, the function button immediately jumps into the strobe. You don't have to hold it. As soon as you press that, if the flashlight isn't on, the strobe goes on. If the flashlight's on, it just functions the same way as this function button does. And so I do think that's a little bit of an improvement. And then the last thing, I don't actually know if this is true on the Ace Beam or not, but the last thing that's a pretty minor nitpick, but something I like to see, is the step down from our turbo mode. It starts at 1900 lumens, steps down to 700 lumens. I always prefer when the step down is at least the high mode. The high mode on this flashlight is 850 lumens, and so we're going about 150 lumens less bright than the high mode when it steps down. And the reason I prefer that is you're going into your turbo mode because you want something a little bit brighter. And so yes, it's a lot brighter at the 1900 lumens, but then when it steps down, it's going to be less bright than your high mode, and you might as well just be in high. So I would take a trade-off where this hits 850 for the step down and maybe has a little bit less runtime. I don't know if that's just a me thing or if everyone has that preference, but for me, I think that obviously makes a lot of sense. Overall though, I think at that $72 price point, you're getting a solid flashlight, really nice functions, easy to operate, and you're staying a little bit cheaper than something like that Defender P17. $30 to $50 is a pretty significant difference, and so I think this is still a worthy pickup at that price point. do want to talk about some of what comes included with the flashlight as well, because it does come in this nice hard travel case. There's a box on the outside of it, but everything is packaged inside the travel case. You can see nice reverse zippers on here and tons of extras included with it. So we'll get this unzipped, open it up, and you see we have a laser cut foam insert in here where our flashlight is stored, as well as a belt sheath. And so this does button onto your belt or slide through your belt and close up. There's also these little elastic loops that are on the outside, and so you can add small pieces of gear around it. If you're someone who's using this for work, for example, maybe work security, something like that, you want to throw this on your belt. You can also put a couple accessories there on the outside as well. I don't find myself using these a lot, not just for flashlights, just in general, like Leathermans and stuff come with them as well. I don't find myself using them a ton, but this is nicely done. We also have a case for our battery. The battery does come stored here, which is nice. It doesn't ship inside the flashlight, and it's also nice for storage overall. If you know you're not going to be using this for a while, it's good to store your battery in here so it doesn't end up corroding and gunking up the inside of your flashlight, maybe even ruining the circuit and stuff like that inside the flashlight. So really nice to have that case. Now we get a couple other extras as well. We have this pretty cool little telephone cord looking lanyard where you can clip it to your flashlight and then whatever else you want to, so it stays kind of somewhat nearby. We have our O-ring, or our spare O-ring. This was inside of here, so that's not anything. We have a couple pieces of paper. These do come with a 4-year warranty, and they're owned and designed in the US. They're manufactured overseas, but they are owned in the US, and they have a 4-year warranty on them, and you can register it for an extra 12 months, which I believe gets you to 5 years there. And then they even send this not happy, talk to us, we'll make it right. And I've talked to the owner, Jason. He seems like he's really passionate about his product and will take care of you. So really like that aspect of it. We also get our more standard just wrist lanyard that attaches on there, as well as a USB-C charging cord. So it can use any USB charging cord. In fact, I've just been using the one that's permanently plugged in on my desk, but it does come with one if you need it. And so that's really nice. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is you may end up seeing this on some other YouTube channels. I've already seen a couple other unboxings of this flashlight recently, and I wanted to talk about why. Obviously, they're being sent out for review, but why are YouTubers and other reviewers accepting this light? And to me, it comes down to they seem like an honest and trustworthy company that is delivering a product as advertised. And so that may seem pretty obvious, but it's not necessarily. Once you start reviewing flashlights, you do get a lot of offers to review flashlights, and usually they're one of two things. So the first scenario is a very common one. You get to it, they send you a link, and it's advertising an output that's just not possible with the battery source or the power source. And so you'll see 20,000 lumens, but it's powered by a AAA battery, and that's just not possible. No matter what LED, what circuit you have in there, how low the battery runtime is, you're not going to get 20,000 lumens out of a AAA or even a AA battery. And so it's pretty obvious that they're misleading you with the technical specifications of the flashlight. And once they do that, you question everything else. You can't trust the runtime or the throw, or even the materials might be different. The battery may be mislabeled and be using a weaker powered battery than it is. And so you really just can't trust anything. And so it's not worth it to even look at the flashlight. Maybe some people do and they trash it or call them out for mislabeling it. I think I've seen some channels where they test those claims and misprove them. But for the most part, most people aren't accepting those flashlights, and those are the ones that come in the most often. The second scenario is they look pretty legit. They're asking you to buy the flashlight on Amazon and they'll reimburse you. And that always seemed a little bit scammy to me, although I have heard of people doing that and being reimbursed for it. The reason I think they're doing that is they want to pay for the verified purchase label on Amazon and you to review the product on Amazon. And again, that seems a little bit sketchy to me. Also, it kind of gives them a little bit of leverage if they don't reimburse you right away to say, okay, put up the Amazon review, then I'll reimburse you. And they want to make sure it's a 5-star review, and they can kind of have a little bit of control over things. And so both of those scenarios are just something that I'm really not into, wouldn't check out on the channel. I actually do plan on publishing both criteria and what I send to companies when they ask me to review a product on a website. I started working on it last weekend. It's not live yet, but do plan on publishing that in the future. But happy to say that Sharvol does not fall in either of those categories. I've talked to the owner, Jason. He seems like a really stand-up guy, wants to make it right if anything does go wrong. And although I don't have any way to test the lumens, I do have comparable lights with comparable outputs from reputable brands that people have trusted and have been tested, and it does seem to be in line with the output that we're getting from those flashlights. And so I know he's delivering a product that's delivering the output that he's advertising. And so just wanted to point that out because I have seen a couple other channels popping up with these. And so if you're wondering, you know, why is everyone looking at these all of a sudden? Can we trust these reviews? I definitely do find them to be a trustworthy company which is putting out a product that matches their output. So just kind of wanted to address that for a second, but would love to hear your thoughts on this light down in the comments below. I will link to both Amazon and Sharvol in the description. Not affiliated with Sharvol, but make sure you do some price comparison because prices do fluctuate a little bit on Amazon, where I'd imagine they're going to be a little more stable on the website. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, definitely consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and hitting that notification button. And as always, hope you have a great one. Take care.